Pawn e2 to e4. Pawn e7 to e6. Pawn d2 to d4. Pawn d7 to d5. Knight b1 to d2. Knight g8 to f6. Pawn e4 to e5. Knight f6 to d7. Bishop f1 to d3. Pawn c7 to c5. Pawn c2 to c3. Knight b8 to c6. Knight g1 to e2. Pawn c5 takes d4. Pawn c3 takes d4. Knight d7 to b6. Castle kingside. Pawn f7 to f6. Knight d2 to f3. Knight c6 to b4. Bishop d3 to b5, check. Knight b4 to c6. Queen d1 to c2. Pawn f6 takes e5. Knight f3 takes e5. Pawn a7 to a6. Knight e5 takes e6. Queen d8 to h4. Pawn g2 to g3. Queen h4 to h3. Knight e2 to f4. Queen h3 to g4. Knight c6 to e5, check. Bishop c8 to d7. Bishop b5 takes d7, check. Knight b6 takes d7. Knight e5 takes g4. Pawn h7 to h5. Knight f4 to g6. Rook h8 to g8. Knight g4 to e5. Knight d7 takes e5. Knight g6 takes e5. Pawn g7 to g5. Queen c2 to h7. Rook g8 to g7. Queen h7 takes h5, check. King e8 to d8. Bishop c1 takes g5, check. Bishop f8 to e7. Queen h5 to h8, check. Rook g7 to g8. Queen h8 takes g8, check. King d8 to c7. Rook a1 to c1, check. King c7 to d6. Bishop g5 takes e7, check. King d6 takes e7. Queen g8 takes a8. King e7 to d6. Queen a8 to d8, checkmate.